Hey, everybody, kinfolk and friends out there. Welcome back to the Other Side Chronicles. We got a great show planned for you today. Last week, we had some great stories from the Hawaiian Islands, and this week, we're going to go down to old Mexico with our guests here, with Nancy sitting next to me. And you'll recognize Nancy from the very first show we did on the Other Side Chronicles, who's the director of the museum where we sit today at the Highline Heritage Museum. And then our friend Christian, who also has his hands in the works here at the Highline Heritage Museum. And I know I have leaned on Christian already several times when it comes to trying. I am not. What happens today, what you're seeing today, is not because I have any kind of skills when it comes to IT or that stuff. So Christian is our guy when it comes to making sure everything's running smoothly, both with the Other Side Chronicles and all the other inner workings of the museum. Am I correct there?
That's correct. Yeah, he's a hero.
Yeah. Yeah, we love you,
Thank you.
Christian. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I am the lucky one, guys.
And
Thank you.
And we were just noticing the very modern electronics that's behind Christian there. Brought me back to my childhood with that TV and rotary phone that's sitting behind him there. Yeah.
Yes, it's not a hologram or a background digital background. It's real. I can go and change the channel in the TV.
Yeah, you have to literally exercise to go. You have to get some exercise to go change the channel, which is always important to be able to do that. So cool. So let's get a little background on where you're both from, and what part of Mexico's a big country, and so where are you all from? Christian, let's start with you. What part of Mexico does your family come from?
Mexico City. I was born in Mexico City, same like my father, but his family came from Michoacan, from Acámbaro, Michoacan. For what I hear, there was a big uh, flow or like floating, yes, in the water floating in Michoacan, and they have to flee the small town for some time, but they didn't come back. My mother, she's native from Puebla, Mexico, pretty close to Mexico City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nancy, about you?
I'm processing what just Christian said because my family fled from one part of my family fled from Michoacan after that flood in 1940s.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was I always thought that was a volcanic eruption, and then like you can see, but then also there's other elements of that you can be on the lake and you can see the top of the church, the cross in the lake because everything got submerged with water, and so. Now you make me wonder, like I need to research that part of my family. So originally I'm from Mexico City, the same as Christian. And yeah, I got my grandparents, my parents, and myself in there. So
Okay, there you go. So, I've had a little chance to talk to both of you, and obviously the show is about spooky stuff and stuff we can't explain. We've been all over that. We've been down the Bigfoot Road, UFOs, lots of ghost stories, and so today I think we're gonna have a little bit of a mix, which I'm super excited about. Some personal ghost stories, and then some some information about some of the legends of down in Mexico and some of those things that keep the kids from being out too late at night. So I love those kind of stories. So we're gonna do a little mix of both. So let's start, Christian, with you with can you tell me a little bit? I know we're going to talk about your parents and some of their stories. So kind of get a little background of like what your parents kind of believed in and their background. That and maybe let's start with maybe a story from your ancestors.
Sure, thank you. Before I forget, I want to just say something about that floating in Michoacan.
Okay, yeah.
So the paperwork got lost, so um, their born paperwork, the certificate of born,
Mhm.
and many aunts, probably they're not going to be listening to this show because they're elder, but they many of them they when they came to Mexico very young, they took the opportunity to like take 10 years off their records, so they were 10 years younger all the time.
Oh my God, do I have to go through a flood to do that? How can I do that? I would love to be able
it,
to do
it's
that.
it, it's like, yeah, how come you're the aunties, they're like I mean they look in their maybe early 40s, but in their paperwork they said that they're like 32.
I
Like,
wonder if
anyway, so
psychologically,
yeah,
if you do
yeah,
that on your birth certificate, will you actually feel younger? That's what I want to know. Like, if I'm able to switch
yeah.
from
So
65 to 55, will I feel like I'm 50?
yeah.
All right,
Well,
that's a great ending to that story.
yes. Well, starting with that, my mom was raised Catholic and following the traditions, and the traditions, especially in the small towns, are very. I mean, they're taking everything very serious. And when I say this is, for example, Dia de los Muertos, it is a serious. Celebration that it's in the whole town. There might be some families that they probably didn't participate on the celebration, but in the my family, it was a very big thing. So they always believe that it was mandatory to have the altar, to have the table ready, because our ancestors, they will come in every year to get what they like, their favorite dish, their favorite piece of bread, their favorite fruit, um, and
And
many.
and just real quick for some of our listeners that may not
Sure,
totally hear that, we're talking about like the Day of the Dead, correct?
Day of the
Got it. Okay.
yes,
Yep. Okay.
that's right. Which happens every 1st and 2nd of November, and around that, there's many beliefs that yes, the dead people come back that day to have their fest, and I can start saying that. One night we were sleeping in the house. I mean, the house, my grandparents' house, like many houses in Mexico, they were not really designed. They were just adding rooms, as they needed. But sometimes you have to go across the patio to go to the kitchen, to go to the bathroom, and that particular night we were afraid to do that because we were like hearing some voices and some, yeah, like if people were in the living room like enjoying the fest. So, and that was, I don't know if maybe it was a product of our imagination. Maybe we were like saturated with all those conversations, and to the point that yes, in my imagination I was hearing voices, in the living room. My father's side, my father didn't really have religion. He was a rebel. He believed in God, and respect the traditions, and when to participate, always like behind the scenes, helping with everything else, but not being in the front of the celebrations. But he told me, he shared with me that he had this special connection with a world that it's hard to understand, because since he was very young, he started seeing things that he cannot explain. He couldn't explain, and and not only like one time. It happened many times. So um, he wasn't afraid of it. He wasn't afraid. I think he got used to it with the time and to understand that none of that was necessarily to hurt him, but he was seeing that kind of things. When I can remember, he told me that he was coming back from late from work, like on a Friday. So he went to like an after work party with his workmates, and he was a biker. He was riding this motorcycle, and somehow he thought he got run out of gasoline at this area where there is this canal in the like out the outside the border of the city, basically between the city and the state of Mexico, which is around the city of Mexico. On those days, we used to call it Distrito Federal, so like the federal district. But now it changed it to City of Mexico. But he saw this like mariachi guy with a like a charro sombrero with a hat, and in the not very clear because it was foggy. It was like a 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, no one around, and he saw this guy like there in the canal. He thought that maybe he lost something, or he was like looking for something in the water, and he's like, oh, it's one of those maybe mariachis that just got off work. He probably coming back from the Garibaldi Plaza, which is the place where mariachis they're gathered, and you go and you hire a mariachi right on the spot. You take the mariachi to your party, or to sing some songs to a lady you're trying to go out with. But no, he start since he saw him, then he started like calling, hey, you need help? You okay? And he wasn't the figure, the person wasn't responding. And then but he couldn't see his face. And that's when the person or the being finally decided like to turn around and to look at it. He just couldn't describe what he saw, and that's what, oh, I got goosebumps already. But that's
Mhm.
what is he's like start feeling very very the fear in his, so to the point that he couldn't move for a moment. And then he saw that the person, yeah, start like getting into the water, and then just going away. And that's when he could move and then go back to the motorcycle and somehow to start the motorcycle again. And he he was gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And that since that day, that night, he said, like, I didn't, every time I needed to come back late, he said, I just don't come back. I just stay here at work and then just sleep over at work, because he said, I was very afraid, of seeing that guy again. He
Yeah.
was very, very scared. So I'll stop with that because I have a few more to
That's
tell.
a,
But
that's a great story. I wish
yeah,
I would. My only wish is that he could describe the face. I want to know what that face. I want.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know, some and like that, I hear many stories from other adults, from my uncles, and especially in the small towns, the people that they go hunting at night, especially at night, rabbits, some the deer, maybe some other animals that they were good for hunting and for eating. But many of them, they have those stories that of like uh like seeing people that belong to other eras, like in the woods, like for example, the people that maybe participate and die during the Mexican Revolution, and they probably die in the woods, with like probably their people, they didn't have time to come back and just rescue the body, who knows, but I think that some people, when they pass away, they might have the ability to come back and do the unfinished business. And some other people that maybe they go in peace, they don't have a reason, they just don't come back. That's my theory about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love all the different theories about it, like, the energies and different dimensions. And there's just so many ways to think about it and look about it. And it may not just be one thing. It may, when it comes to
Hmm.
ghost stories, it may be all kinds of different things, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different humans. Why not there be a whole bunch of different kinds of spirits and ghosts and ways they communicate and you know. So Christian, thanks. That's a great first story, and we'll come back to the next one. Let's jump over to Nancy, and if she can give us a little bit of something about a legend. I know she's done some talks and is a little bit. I'm not say a little bit is an expert on these legend stories.
I don't think I am an expert, and yes, I've been presenting at the state level or even at local level, but I do repeat what I research. I do repeat what I see and learn. And one of the most common stories that you hear us repeating over and over through generations is La Llorona. La
Hmm.
Llorona, the crying woman. I mean, that is something that is what is impressive about that the specific entity is that it has been transferring through generations from generations, and not only through time. We're talking about starting from the pre-Hispanic story. And here we are in 2025, and you can ask any little kid, and they will still tell you who La Llorona is right at this
Yes.
moment. And so the story, the origins is not as clear, but once again, it's one of those very strong entities that is very emblematic to Mexico. La Llorona, the crying woman, is about this. There's many versions too, all the way from the Spanish colonial times to today, more recent to, like you say earlier. But in Mexico City, when you think about it, it used to be settled on top of a lake. And so there's a lot
Mhm.
of body water around. Think about Venice. Venice, you do the transportation to balsas or little boats. And so that's what it was in Mexico City. It was based on and it's still we still have that. It is an area in Mexico City called Xochimilco that is
Yeah.
still the pre-Hispanic structure that the Aztecs had in place. And so on this time, it seems like it was this woman who had two children, and out of despair, out of the pain of this guy abandoned her, she just decides to just lose her mind and kills her kids. Immediately, she's regretful of killing her kids, and then the way she kills them is by drowning them underwater, by drowning them under the river. And so that's why the body of water is important in some of the elements of the story. And the what is creepy, scary is that even up to today, and now think about it, before the Spanish came, is the temples were the ones that there was actually architectural structures on it. Once the Spanish came, they destroyed all those temples and then reused this recycle basically the same stones and build what you see in the center of Mexico City right now. And so there the spirits, the stories still remains. And so one of the most typical stories that you hear is that you hear this woman wailing and crying and desperately just completely in despair or crying for her children. But it's such a piercing crying, a piercing wailing, and then the pain of it that it transferred to saying, hey, if you're not careful, I'm going to take your kids too. And so one of the things that the parents would tell the kids is, you go to sleep, if behave okay, if not, the Joron is going to come and they're going to come back and trying to get you to suit the need of getting back your children. And so it's a really scary story if you think about it, because once again, it's one of those that kind of pass on in generation to generation. And then I think of one version, there's a movie here in America that it was based on that legend too. It did not go that popular, but it's actually one of the first indications that is trying to have that crossover, but now in the United States. But this one specifically, imagine you're a little kid, you're afraid, and then any little sound, any idea of a spirit, it is this spirit with intention to take you, with intention to drown you, with intention of uh of it's not just I'm gonna kill you, it's gonna like it is this intensity of pain and then desperation. And so the wailing and crying, the screaming of it, it is something that nobody wants to listen, nobody wants to hear it. Later on, you can see that in the Spanish colonial versions, and then later on, you hear it across Mexico through the different little towns. But yeah, it's the same idea of just you on late at night and you're walking around and you see this fog and the fog comes in, and then I don't know where you hear this whisper in the beginning, and then as the time passes, that whisper gets louder and louder and louder, but this time with this horrible, horrible desperation and pain and wailing, and then really trying to take you down.
Wow, it would keep me in at night. Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's a combination of the story and of all the ancestral trauma that's happened because,
Mm-hmm.
so many people died
Mhm.
during that time. They were slaughtered,
Oh.
basically. They were slaughtered.
And then if you can put like a black light on the center of Mexico City, I'll tell you, you will see DNA of blood of so many people who died in building those palaces, because we call it the city of palace. The reason why it's a nickname is because it's palaces everywhere, and it's those Spanish who created that. And so I actually have a book that is from the 1930s that is all the legends in Mexico City. And it's one of the most creepy books that you can ever hear, because it's not written like a normal standard book that you have. It is something that you will probably see it from the 1800s actually, and bound in a way that is really, really old looking. And so the trauma, is the violent history that we have in our town, is I mean, here we are a land of warriors, we are a land of fighters, and and even today, I know that some people will see Mexico as a third world country, but the origins, we were, sorry to say it like that, smarter than many other places. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it is true. We have the level of intelligence, and academically, I'm talking about astrology, math, and all kinds of things, and even in approach of everyday life, way better than in some of the cities in Europe.
Sure.
And so when this massacre took place, the intensity, and not only on the destruction of what beliefs are, and in the domination of this new religion impulsion, it created this weird ecosystem where it's the need to replace some of those religious beliefs. I'm not gonna go to. I know I don't want to go outside the topic. I'm gonna go back to the
We can
spiritual
we
thing.
can we could we could do a double show here if we had to, but
No,
yeah, I
I'm a
get
little
it.
nerdy. I'm a little nerdy with the paranormal stuff, but also with the historic
Yeah, yeah.
element. And so, but no, the spirits, the pain, the trauma is there, and there's been a lot of legends based on the spirits. And but one that, like again, that has been consistent through centuries, no matter what it is, and it's still living and pulsing, is that one specifically.
Yeah, great story. All right, Christian, we're back at you here now. Give us another ghost story.
Excuse me. Well, there was something that my dad was sharing with me, that from time to time he will experience some kind of weird things that, yeah, again, he couldn't explain. Like the time that he said that they were coming back from this celebration in the small town in Puebla. And as they were driving, some like sand from the ocean, like from the beach, it was like coming down from the sunscreen that they have on the cars. They can pull down when it's too sunny. And it's like, well, he was driving, didn't stop like to check because it was dark, it was at night. And it's like, he was just thinking like, how is this happening? Because we have not been close to the ocean like for months maybe. No, so how can we? Then at the next morning, because that was in the weekend, I think they were coming on Sunday, coming back to the city of Mexico. And the next day he took the car to a place for car wash. On those years, we had only one automatic car wash in Mexico City, and that was kind of a luxury for everybody, because that was like the thing, oh, the automatic car wash. But we have many places where, by hand, where people were making a living out of that washing cars all day long, and they did a really, really good job. So my father had his favorite one, so he took the car there, and the guys found they had to vacuum a lot of ocean sand from the carpet of the car, from the floor. And they were like, "Hey, man, you went to looks like you went crazy going to the beach." And like it's like, no, I didn't go to he couldn't explain how that happened. I mean, it's like, and it's not maybe spooky, it's not scary, but there's something that happened to him, and he couldn't explain. He was a guy that was in love with like nature. He was an animal lover. He had all kind of pets, and when he was dating my mom, his pet was he had a snake. So the snake, it was with him all the time. He was like going with him in the motorcycle, and he had the snake. It wasn't a big snake, just something middle size. But I don't remember what kind of a snake, but he had it pretty much like around his neck, you know. And my dad was shorter than me, but chubby guy, you know, not very super athletic, but he had a thick neck, you know. And I guess, yeah, maybe he wasn't afraid of, like, you know, being how do you call, like, um squeaked by the snake. Anyway, he came to visit my mom, and then my aunt Irene. um the auntie Irene was the wife of my mother's older uncle, Demetrio. But my understanding is that she was sick after her third child, and my dad came to visit my mom, and they were there just visiting. She's the one that opened the door, and the first thing she sees is the snake. And of course she was like almost passing out because of that. But that's okay. So that yes, we know that people is afraid of snakes, and yes, my dad wasn't careful to, like, just, you know, hide his animal. Anyway, so that happened. Almost 1 year, I think, almost 1 year later after that, Tia, or, you know, Auntie Irene, she passed away. So, but there was a very good relationship with them, very, very good friendship, you know. And then she trusts my dad and my mom a lot. So they told me, well, first my dad, he said, like, the only ghost clear that he has seen, that was Tia Irene, so Auntie Irene. And she came back to just tell that, please take care of my daughters, you know, after she passed away. And that happened in her house, basically. They went to visit the family. They went to the memorial service, to the funeral, and almost the second night, I think that's what happened. So she come back as ghost. And I know that my dad can, you know, he could maybe lie about some other things, maybe about, like, not going
Exaggerate
to.
maybe a little bit once in a while. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
not really. I mean, he was probably lying about, like, you know, maybe lying to my mom that I didn't go to the party, I was working. Now he went to the party. But for something like that, he wasn't. And then the second, because she saw it, that was my mom. My mom was like, "Yep, yeah, I saw that." And I was so scared, I was paralyzed, you know. But the one that kind of that was listening more clear of what she was saying is your dad. So that's again, that's my belief, that some people, when they pass away, they might have their permission, you know, from the supreme power to come back and, you know, just take care of some unfinished business, or like those ones that they die with worries, you know, like about their family, about their kids. Those are the ones that maybe cannot rest in peace that as soon as other people, right? So that was my dad. He said that was like the last time I get to see uh, uh, something, a ghost, you know, a person,
I,
you
I
know.
love that. I love that story because so many ghost stories, including my own. I
Mhm,
have my own. You only have one person, you know, telling it, and one
mhm,
person saw it. And not that I don't believe one person, But when you have a story like that where both people
Hmm.
see it, it
Yeah,
just like substantiates the story more. It's just like, I might me seeing it, maybe there was something in the light or something that fooled me, possibility, but when both people see it, that's something.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's something. And I've been chicken for like what that those kind of things. I mean, I that's why I avoid watching horror movies because my mind, my imagination, then it's yeah, it's not good for me. I've been overcoming all that by trying to give an explanation to all that with a science. Maybe the science that we have not completely, or no, we have not finished exploring.
Mhm.
It has to do with maybe advanced technology, or when the things that we don't know about the space or time. The things that was making people like Albert Einstein, upset, like about like how to go from point A to B, in less time, like how the universe. So I think if I try to give the explanation to all that, to the point that, yeah, I mean, I don't get to hear or see things. But my dad was all the time. It's like I'm used to now, because in the place that he used to work at, those old buildings, Mexico City, those old hospitals, especially the areas where the people where they pass away in the hospitals. The people maybe at the morgue, at the they call it the amphitheater, is where they put all the dead bodies to put identification. And like after the earthquake, also when many people, including babies, they die in that big earthquake. He said like at night when he had to do his turn for being there, for making sure that everything was running good in the hospital, in case they got a power outage, that somebody has to be the responsible to turn on the emergency electric plant. So he had to spend some nights, and I was like, I get to hear a lot of things here, knowing that no one was here. Like, no, I mean, everybody was gone, at least in this floor. He said the upper floors, there's a different story, because yes, there's people, but there's like no one here with us working in this basement, and then I get to hear, like people screaming, like, oh yeah, it's like it was difficult to get to sleep. But he said, but I couldn't sleep anyway, because I'm supposed to be,
Right.
aware, or like just ready for anything. But things like that. And I grew up listening to those stories. One that it was kind of funny is that in the family, one aunt, it was declared dead, but she wasn't dead. So they were in the funeral. They have the coffin, and she woke up, and she looked at everybody like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" It's like that is one of
Whoa.
those stories that is like, oh, well, yes, that is real. That can happen. I mean, maybe the brain stopped like working, maybe the heart, who knows what, but I think it's not the only story that we get to hear that happened. And that's why maybe some people, they prefer to be incinerated, right? Just to make sure that they're not going to put the body like bury the body, and then the people wake up, there. Um, and then this is another funny one, but it has to do with the funeral. They made a mistake with the body. They delivered the wrong body to the funeral, and they have to come back like in the middle and say like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we made a terrible mistake." And the family was like, well, no wonder we didn't recognize the grandma because she doesn't look like our and that is, it's probably one of the funniest one, because they were praying, they were crying, and because of that, everything turned into something funny. So they couldn't start a prayer without like cracking in laughing, because that was a very awkward, moment. And my many of my family, they used to work in the system, in the in the IMSS, which is the Institute of Mexican Social Security, but it's not like here, like in United States, it's not like the Social Security Office. That's an institution that will make sure that we'll cover with medical insurance to many a lot of people that they work in many different things. So they were working for that institution for many years, and so they knew the people that made a mistake, and that's why they make a big deal out of it. But that could be somebody could go to even to maybe to pay a big fine for that kind of mistake.
Right.
Imagine that happened here in United States. It's like,
Well, I can
oh
imagine a
no.
lot of things, believe me, but
Yeah, so anyway, so those two stories they were I guess funny. But imagine you in a funeral and you're there and praying and crying, and then you see that the body the dead body is not dead. It's still alive. That could be very very scary for a lot of
oh my
people.
gosh, that's
Like
wild. Yeah, that
yeah.
is wild. That
But
that
yeah,
great stories, Christian. Oh my God, it's great to be able to, I mean, it's one thing about I have friends that are what's called death doulas that they work with people that are dying and that things are
mhm.
trying to change the way the Western people look at death, and I think we're a little bit twisted. We don't, and I love hearing about other cultures that are more open to being in the presence of people that are dead. And in that story, they were actually in the presence of somebody that wasn't dead. But
Yes,
you
yeah,
know, that's
yeah.
it's a great
That's
story. Oh, all right, switching back. You got another legend story you'd like to tell us?
Yeah, but I think I'm gonna actually ask you where direction because Mexico is like if you put the size of Mexico and overlay it on top
Hmm?
of Europe, it's almost the same size as Europe.
Yeah,
And so every state has their own unique
sure.
legends, have their own unique takes.
yeah.
Hmm.
But talking to continue with the theme that Christian
Hmm.
started,
Sure.
and there is one town, it's called Guanajuato. Um, and this one is that city hosts the Museum of Mummies. I mean, we're gonna be connecting with museums, connecting with what Christian was saying. It is horrible because there are a collection of mummies, real human beings. They were found. There's a Guanajuato in the 19 no in the 1500s was the number one exporter of silver globally, and so the mines. When you go into that town or that city, it's all full of hills. Under those hills, it's just channels of mines all around. And so they found this huge body, or this huge group of bodies. They were mummified by accident. It was no intentional. They just let them there. And so because of the condition of the soil and all the environmental factors, they truly got mummified. And so instead of the government, doing something with it that is more respectful and more mindful of that, what they did
Yeah.
is that they created a museum displaying, and you can still go there, displaying all the bodies to the public to see. And so that town is extremely rich on stories and legends, but that
Because you have
is,
all these unrested souls basically that are that have not had their proper, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So first I thought, oh, this is not for real. This is not. I went the first time when I was pregnant, and I was like, nah, this is not real. But when I actually went there, I was like, oh my God, it is a real bodies. They are human remains. They are not being, and some of them are dressed and some of them are naked. And so you really see all the mummified nakedness of each one of the bodies. And so it's an extremely creepy place to be, to me, morally, ethically, logically. There's something wrong with this whole concept of displaying dead bodies for the public consumption. For me, it's a lack of respect. It's a lack of, I don't know what it is, but also it's like one thing is the ethics of it. A complete different is like what this show is about. What if the spirits are real? What if they are wandering around? What if they are not resting? And it's not that many places globally that you'll find a situation like that. I mean, if I was not a museum director, I was going to be a cultural anthropologist. I love traveling. I love going through different cultures and see how different cultures manifest and express their spirituality and express this paranormal, unexplainable elements. But in this case, this one is like, where is the line?
Mhm.
You're displaying dead bodies, and then what do you do with the scientifical, morally, and then these pieces? Some of them are children. Some of them are really short. There's a mix of genders. You see male, you see women, you see children, but mostly the majority of them are men. And I don't know, it is one of the most creepy places because it's not like it's all of it in one room. What they do, they truly do a museum with many galleries. And so they're all put up on standing up on vitrines. And so it's almost like they're just standing up, staring at you.
Mm.
You walk into the space and it's is you see the disconfiguration on the facial structure. You see the mummified muscles on the bodies. You see the fragility of the hair. You can see the teeth. You can see very intimate, private limbs around that. It's like, okay, there is this human element of us as consumption, as we consuming this, like, why are we attracted to it as a human being? I mean, at first when I saw it, I thought, oh, like I say, it's no real, it's just a fake thing. But when I was there, like, no, these guys are real, and it is evident to that. And so talking about dead, funerals, museums, that's the story that comes in my head. And there's a lot of more stories I'd like to share, but I also want to make sure that I'm following your pace.
Yeah, well, we're watching time here. We got about little over 5 minutes to go. And that one thing that came up for me when you were saying that, and I know it's that way in Mexico when you talk about Mexico City and everything that's happened there. I mean, I hear indigenous people here talk about like we're constantly walking on the bones of the people that lived here, and there was a lot of suffering. They got moved away from their ancestors that were buried, here, and so it's that's something I keep in mind all the time, that when I'm thinking about that, is that having respect in whatever way we can. Obviously, we can't fix a lot of the things that have happened in the past, but we can have the respect. And I think that that's what you're talking about when you're at this museum. It's like, what are we here for? What are we why? And I also thought about, I think it's in Italy, maybe in Rome. I may be wrong, but it's that place where you go down into these caverns, and the skulls, the walls are just lined with skulls and bones of all these people,
Well, you see that in the main cathedrals, especially in the Catholic religion. And yes, I've been in Rome too. But then there's one that impressed me the most. There's one town, the one place I wasn't expecting that in Lima, Peru. You go down and then you see a collection of skulls all around. They're real skulls, and it's extremely creepy. But then you go to archaeological sites like in the Aztec culture or the Mayan culture, they do have walls of skulls
Right.
because they're representing something completely different. But the one thing is a representation, having that symbolic look, but in completely different, having the real bones. And like in this country, for example, one of the issues, we're talking about Native American, tribal burial sites, and then when somebody's not respecting that, and all the controversial and ethical and morally issues that comes with it. But once again, the spiritual plane. What happens when, one thing, you see the bones, you see the remains, but what happens to the spirit? What happens to the unfinished business? And like, for me, the mummy, the mummification is not just as cold. It's like it's still trapped through with the skin, with all the intact, not intact, but all the pieces together that you can clearly see the shape of a human being.
Okay.
And so, no,
Yeah.
I can talk a lot. So
Sure enough. And
you.
so can I. So one thing, jumping back, Christian, I know we'd had a conversation before, and it's
Mhm.
just it's interesting. And I know this happens again and again when I have conversations, obviously with different people, that there seems to be certain people that are more receptive to having these things happen to them, and it seems like your dad was one of those
Mhm.
people. Like, for whatever reason, right? They tend to And you know, I've also run into people and talked to people that I have a little bit of like wondering whether their stories are being made up or whatever. But then there's certain people you can tell that they totally believe in what they say. And I think I'm kind of that way in some ways, that I've been open and things kind of tend to happen to me at times. But do you think, I know one other thing you talked about, and tell me if I'm wrong, that your dad uh was you talked about him being able to have kind of an out of body experience. He was able to kind of do that and do like travel like that way. Is that right?
It wasn't him, it was my grandpa. My
Oh,
grandpa.
okay,
It
okay.
was his dad that he they a lot of people say he grandpa was the rare guy in the family. He was the one that liked to he was involved in the movie industry. So he get to know a lot of interesting people and people that usually they invite him to like his private parties. And one of the things that he used to do, he was a tap dancer. And for what I hear, he was a very good one. And then going through that, I would say like eccentric world, you get to know this group, this society that they used to practice those that kind of we'll call it a spiritual exercise to meditate and to get to point that you can get your soul, your spirit out of your body, so you can see your body there, that you can travel. It's one of those things that my dad told me that my grandpa didn't like to speak too much about it because obviously the rest of the family were like, no, you're crazy. What are you doing? But he get to tell my dad some things like that. And the family was accusing him that if he was doing those kind of practices, that he was going just to, is like opening a door to something that he couldn't explain, or opening a door to a danger world. So dangerous. In other words, he was playing with fire. And then the family, which many of them, many except my grandpa, my father's mother, um, they were Catholic, the traditional Catholic, that they believe that doing that kind of stuff eventually was going to put a curse in the family. So that's why he decided to not to talk about it. But my father and his brothers, they knew that grandpa was into that. He was a very curious man. He was a very uh obsessed man with like the things that we don't know, I guess. But I could see, because I get to go and visit him when he was in living in Hidalgo, Mexico. We went to visit him a couple of times, and it was the guy that has like his more valuable things in a furniture, like in a bookcase like the one I have here in the back, like his train, his model train, his little things that he got from when he went to Brazil, when he went to like around the world. And very keep it in like very meticulous way. And he was a very he had a store. He used to sell like feed for animals, like yeah, food for animals. But it's the kind of a guy in a small town that he was wearing a bath, like a laboratory bath, white, like super clean all the time with his tie. So somebody that was very serious about everything he did, So
Mhm.
that's why my dad remember him as a very curious person. Nah,
You-
and he's the one that was doing
Sure.
that.
Do you know why that maybe your dad was kind of a receptacle to a lot of these things? Any you have a feel for that at all? Why your dad
They
is that way?
um what at one point he believes that was some kind of inherence. My grandma, um, she used to tell also a lot of stories, like in the small town back in Michoacan. I was scary to hear. Every time they start like talking about it, I kind of close my ear, and I was like, no, no, I don't want to hear that, no, because then I couldn't sleep. But I think my dad said one time like he probably inherits that from his mother. And I was like, oh, I hope I don't inherit any of that. I don't want to see things, like I guess, yeah, the supreme power listened to me and was like, yeah, okay, we'll leave you alone. We probably give it to somebody. No, but I think it's a gift, I think it's like if people with that ability can develop, like in the movie, like the ghosts, right? With the Whoopi Goldberg and Demi Moore, that Whoopi Goldberg was the one that had to make connection because she had the gift, right, of like
Right.
getting people from the other world, to connect. I think that's a gift that maybe we are afraid of. Maybe people decide not to explore. It's like something that maybe it's against religions, I guess. Yeah, but in my in my case, hearing those stories, it made me very nervous.
Yeah.
It made me not able to sleep at night, or be afraid of when I was by myself or in like dark, places. So yeah.
Yeah. I would have loved to have met your dad.
Oh, he was a very funny, interesting guy, full of stories, and he got this special way to connect with people that it was easy for him to make friends.
Right.
Yeah,
No, yeah.
everywhere.
So before we close up, I have to ask one more question, Christian. Is there a vase on your TV that has flowers on it? Is that actually there? Because it,
Yeah.
'cause it looks
Mhm.
like it's spooky, like it's almost like it's faded and it's like they're not sure. So it's actually there. Okay. I thought maybe
Yeah.
seeing a ghostly vase there, but okay, it's actually there.
Yeah, and as you can
I'm gonna
see,
say
I
if
can.
if you would have said to me that's not there, we would have had a great. I mean, not that the show's not already great, but we would have
Yeah.
had a great show.
Yeah. No,
Thank you,
no.
Dad,
Yes.
for bringing those flowers to us.
Sure. The guy that is behind me sometimes appears, sometimes he disappears,
Uh,
But that's because people come and they say like, "Oh, I like this picture. I want to take it home." And they're like, "No, no, no, no. Leave that picture there." And some people that they don't know, the story of the Mexican Revolution, some people they come and like, "Oh, is that your grandpa?" And like, I wish, but no,
so that is
that's Emiliano Zapata. Yeah,
okay.
very good, great leader of the Mexican Revolution.
All right.
So
Does he have
yeah,
another? He has another name? No, that's his name. Okay. All right.
yeah.
I thought maybe that was the guy from the river, the mariachi guy.
It could be, could be. Yeah, that's the description. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So no,
well, it's been a great show, and I've loved having both of you on. I'm going to I always end my show every week with giving a plug to the museum. I always do every show because I always tell people if you haven't been here, if you haven't been to the Highline Heritage Museum, which is where Nancy and I are sitting today, it's this little hidden gem in Burien, and so you should check it out. It's an amazing place. And Nancy, anything coming up that people should be aware of that's going on?
Oh
Can
my
you
goodness.
can you plug a few things?
We don't got that much time, but tonight, well, yeah, every single week or month we got something going on. So what I suggest to just connect with us on social media, so just what's happening. One of them is our fundraiser is a pirate theme. This is to honor the Highland High School, which they are the pirates, and so that's the connection. So it's a 100-year celebration.
well,
So we are doing a pirate full theme fundraiser with sea chanting, live performances,
Seashore.
pirate performances, Caribbean food, lots of rum,
Whoa.
and
Okay, got me there.
and then having a really cool lineup of speakers that are really meaningful to the history of the area. And so, no, it is going to be at the Cove at Normandy Park, which is right by the beach. So it's this amazing garden in the summertime with the beach. So if you're interested, please look for us and please join us. We encouraging for everyone to dress up as a pirate.
I was getting ready. That's where I was getting ready to go. If I
Yeah.
sign up, can I dress up like a pirate?
All of us are doing it, and so you better come and have
All right.
fun. And if you don't have
Okay.
a pirate, at least be ready to enjoy with a nice room and some great music. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. drink enough rum, whether I'm dressed like it or not, I'll end up being a pirate before the night's over.
Yes.
There's no
Oh
doubt.
yeah. Oh yeah. You will be part of it.
So thanks everyone for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you again next week. Christian, Nancy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
see
you,
y'all.
everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.